Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another daily movie review, and today we're going to be talking about the 2019 Child's Play reboot. It's directed by Lars Klevberg, written by Tyler Burton Smith. It stars Aubrey Plaza, Trent Redekop, Gabriel Bateman, David Lewis, Brian Tyree Henry, and others. The plot synopsis, the log line here is: a mother gives her 13-year-old son a toy doll for his birthday, unaware of its more sinister nature. The 2019 Child's Play. Let's talk about it. If you watched yesterday's video, I talked about Child's Play 2. And I talked about that I kind of, I liked the franchise for what it is, relative to what it is and what it's trying to accomplish. I think overall it's pretty successful. This is a weird movie. I don't really understand why it's called Child's Play other than just kind of name recognition and kind of basic structure. Because it turns the character of Chucky into just a killer robot. He's just a killer artificial intelligence. And if this wasn't called Child's Play, I think, that almost kind of works against it. If it wasn't called that, I think maybe I would have appreciated it more. It's like, does Child's Play have the patent on killer toys? I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like, the character of Chucky is not a killer toy. He's a serial killer. So it's just kind of weird. I understand why they did it, and I understand taking the new approach and updating it and making it something that's more modern and recognizable in today's world, with artificial intelligence and apps and how those kind of things work and new kids' toys and whatnot. Like, I get that perspective, but having it be part of this, like a reboot of Child's Play, seems kind of weird. And I think it's probably the biggest problem I have with the movie, because, just right up front, like, I don't hate this movie at all. I think it's got a lot of problems. It's got some pacing issues. It's very, unfocused. It's kind of just throws a lot of shit at the wall and sees what sticks. But there is something about the movie that I do enjoy. It's got kind of this, anarchistic spirit. It's a little mean-spirited, too. It is occasionally pretty funny in an honest way. The cast is really great in the movie. But just I don't know, but just having it be a reboot of Child's Play just is something that it just sticks in my mind. I'm like, why is it called Child's Play? That's my biggest, bugaboo with the movie, honestly. But anyways, so moving past that, just talking about the movie on its own merits, its own terms. Like I said, it's got some problems, pacing issues, focus issues. There's too many characters in the movie. And the movie does try to kind of balance everything out and give you some sort of sense of who they are, whether or not it really needs to. Because there are some characters that are supposed to be like the hero characters. Like, there's a cop that lives down the hallway. He ends up working on the case, investigating the murders surrounding this killer doll. Like, he kind of gets the short end of the stick because of all of the other things that the movie's trying to do. It also has Andy. They live in an apartment building, and he's got a bunch of friends. And what the movie kind of ends up being, what it morphs into by the third act, and I would say the last 25 minutes, is these kids in the apartment building versus the killer doll. And I wish the movie had been more focused on that. I was reading some of the trivia, and apparently the director took a lot more inspiration from E.T. than he did from Child's Play. Kind of the tone. Because E.T. has that kind of sense of kids in a neighborhood getting together and experiencing something fantastical. And this movie, it does a bad version of that, which is a shame, because I think in the way the movie actually ends, the last act of the movie is pretty good. I wish that the movie had supported that, though, and it had earned more of that stuff. There's just too many superfluous characters, and they're there kind of to be for fodder. They're there to get killed. I just wish there had been a better, more organic way of going about it. And the movie is surprisingly dark, which, a killer doll, I guess that's going to be kind of dark. Not in a way that not that it's overly serious, mind you. It does have enough self-awareness, and it's got some, like I said, it does have a pretty good sense of humor about itself. But the darkness comes in the characters. Like, there's really no characters to really latch onto in terms of likability. Even Andy, you kind of don't really like Andy that much. And the movie doesn't spend enough time kind of developing his character other than like these very superficial things, right? He's a only child from a single mother, and she's got like an asshole boyfriend, and he's in a new place, and he's trying to fit in. But it doesn't do anything with those things in terms of like the emotional reality of the character, and it acts like it has done those things by the end of the movie, because it's trying to give you a sense of an arc or a catharsis for Andy and his mom, but it doesn't just do the necessary work, which is unfortunate, because I think like the first 25 minutes of the movie, like the setup for the movie and the introduction to some of the characters, works really well. You know who surprised me actually a lot in this movie was Aubrey Plaza. Aubrey Plaza is great in this movie, which you wouldn't immediately assume or think of Aubrey Plaza to play like the single mother in your Child's Play movie. But I think she does a great job, and her natural talents, her natural sense of humor actually matches the tone of the movie, of the script. It really complements it really well. You know, she's a modern mom. She's kind of hip and funny, and I wish they had just done more with her character. But the movie is constantly being pulled in different directions because it constantly needs to develop things in different ways. And this is one of the problems, I think, with having the AI doll, which may, you know, make more sense in sort of like modern anxiety, the things that people would be worried about or maybe, you know, potentially be worried about. You can tap into the subconscious of an audience, the types of things we talk about being afraid of as a society. I think artificial intelligence being something like that, and how connected everything is. You know, what happens if it goes haywire, you know? But it does, because it's not like the original where it's like, no, he's a serial killer, he's a bad dude. We understand the motivations for that stuff. Like, this has to kind of make the case for the killer doll becoming a killer doll, developing into it, learning things, which in a vacuum, I think a lot of those scenes work really well, and they're actually pretty funny. One of the things that kind of inspires this Chucky doll to be a killer is they're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and it's the scene where what's his name, Bill Moseley's character, so Chopper, Chop Saw, you know the guy I'm talking about, the dude who scratches his head with a wire coat hanger. It's the scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 where he like domes somebody with a hammer. It's like the introduction to that character when they break into the little radio station. And that's like one of the things where Chucky learns how to like kill somebody. So there's all these little things like that, and then they have to kind of seed in there the idea that he's actually been told to do these things, and now he's just kind of run with it because he's programmed to be like somebody's best friend, and he wants that person to be happy. And so there's definitely there's an interesting angle there in terms about what people talk about their fears of AI. That what if an AI comes to the conclusion that the best thing it can do for humanity is like to eradicate it? It's kind of got that a little bit of that vibe to it. Yeah. It feels a little bit more ludicrous, I suppose, even than the original conceit, because the motivation is just like it's programming. It's not like the intentions of a free thinking character, I suppose. And it ends up being like, it just makes it connect less. And you don't like Chucky. Like, Chucky's not a character. He's a killer robot who doesn't have much of a personality. Mark Hamill does the voice of Chucky in this movie, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. That could have been anybody. In fact, I'd say the fact that it's Mark Hamill is mildly distracting. I thought he was an interesting choice when I heard that he was cast, because he was cast like very last minute. I mean, like maybe a month and a half before the movie actually came out. So he went and did all his stuff way after the fact, but his performance is fine. but it's just like he's a killer robot, so it's just flat. There's not a lot to work with. There's not a lot to do. He's trying to sound like oblique, but also menacing at the same time, because they want you, the audience, to read into something because you are just familiar in a meta sense with what is going on and what the character is kind of supposed to be. But yeah, it didn't really work for me in that way, you know. And it makes the movie kind of forgettable, I would say, in the long term. But like I said, I don't hate it. It's much better than I thought it was going to be. Just in terms of, there's a lot of interesting elements to it. There's a lot of things to engage with. I just don't think it's very cohesive. It doesn't all come together at the end in like kind of a satisfying package. But the moment to moment experience of watching it it can be fun. It can be fun. I know a lot of people probably write it off because of it's not connected to the rest of the franchise, and even Don Mancini and some of the other people involved with the other Child's Play movies and what they're doing, you know, the Cult of Chucky and Curse of Chucky movies, they kind of threw some shade at it, which maybe rightly so, because now you have these parallel things going. Although I don't think this movie did well enough maybe to warrant a sequel. I mean, it's probably pretty low budget. I don't think the budget on this was huge or anything, but you know, I don't even know what it made. Let's see if they have it here. They probably do, right? Gross budget. Oh, it's, you know, a $10 million movie ends up making $44 million worldwide cumulative gross. That's probably successful. It's kind of like the Blumhouse model. This was I think Orion Pictures. This was like their comeback movie. This is the first thing they've done. So, yeah, they were trying to do something with obviously a franchise that I guess they must have bought the rights to it, because I think Universal had the rights to it for now. Yeah. I don't know how that worked. That's interesting. It's interesting. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird to do Child's Play as a reboot, and it's the same thing that they do with all of these kind of reboots and stuff, where it's like they're going for name recognition, but I don't think it's almost like they don't know how niche something is. Like, Child's Play was very popular in the 90s and has not really been popular since then. I mean, the last one that was in the theater was Seed of Chucky, and that was when? When did Seed of Chucky come out? Let's see if we can find it. Curse of Chucky, Bride of Chucky. I mean, Bride of Chucky's 1998. Seed of Chucky came out in the 2000s, because I saw Seed of Chucky. Yeah, Seed of Chucky comes out in 2004. It's the last time it was in a theater. And that movie, it got critically panned, and I don't believe it did very well. I went to see it, though. I did my job as a fan. I went out there and I supported it. But again, you know, kind of a low budget movie. But yeah, it only made $24 million, almost $25 million worldwide. Opening weekend, $8 million. So it's not like the franchise had, I think, a lot of legs, honestly. It's just not a huge moneymaker. So if you were a studio that was trying to, you know, make a comeback, or at least the name Orion, the production company, was trying to make a comeback, going with Chucky, or Child's Play, the name Child's Play, which hasn't even been associated with the series since Child's Play 3. When did that come out? In 1991 was the last time like Child's Play, the name, was attached to it. So it doesn't even have that, you know. It's like I remember when they did the RoboCop one, or even when they did the sequel to Blade Runner 2049, they just like imagine that these movies have like these massive audiences, and they don't. Like, they have little cults around them, but they're pretty niche. They're pretty niche, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, listen, you could do a lot worse. They could have done a lot worse. It is, I think, fundamentally an entertaining movie. Not going to say a great movie. Like, if I had to give it like a out of 10, out of a star rating out of 10, I'd give it like a 6. Maybe a 6.5 if I was feeling generous. It does make me laugh. There's some great moments in the movie. And there's even some sort of in a vacuum, some of like the kill stuff, like the kills are pretty creative, entertaining, you know? But yeah, there's Child's Play 2019. We've done it. We've talked about it. All right, everybody, if you'd like to know more about Zoobox, bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for Twitter, all that good stuff. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these daily videos, drop it in the comments. We'll put it on the list. It's October. Throw me a horror movie. I will watch it and talk about it. All right, everybody. You have the best one ever.